quiz 1 for our class will be on Monday the 13th, okay? Quiz 1 for our class will be on Monday the 13th, okay, of October, and it will cover phonetics. So you should be able to transcribe things, right, using the IPA system and read from the transcription. Like if I have a passage in the IPA symbols, then you should be able to read the passage. And also you should know like the different descriptors for consonants and vowels, right? Voiceless, fricative, alveolar, like that, okay? I'll talk about the quiz one more time on Wednesday, and I'll give you additional or extra practice for you to do when I'm away, okay? So coming back to what we talked about last time. Last time we get started. Last time we get started on phonology, right? Phonology is the study of sound patterns, right? We focus on sound patterns in phonology. So sound patterns. Not single sounds anymore, but we check to see how sounds pattern together, right? And the first two concepts that are important include the concept of phoneme and the concept of allophone, if you remember, right? Allo means other, okay? Phone is sound. So these are two very important concepts that you must know, okay? The phoneme, which we talked about last time, a phoneme is a significant meaning important, right? A significant sound unit in a language that can indicate contrast in meaning. Okay? A significant sound unit in a language that can indicate contrast in meaning. It's significant because if you change a phoneme and replace it with a different phoneme, then you have a different meaning, a different word. Okay? So, for example, if you take a look at these two words, and they are in phonetic symbols, right? Can you pronounce the first one? Sin, right? The first one is sin, which means sin, like this. Something that you do that is wrong, right? Something that you do that is wrong. Sin. What about this one? End with a tail, so it's sing, right? Sing. So this word, okay? So as you can see, the only difference that you see between these two words is N and N with a tail, right? N is an alveolar nasal, right? N with a tail is the velar nasal, remember? This is alveolar nasal. This is just velar nasal. It's made kind of far back in your mouth, right? So the difference is the place of articulation, okay? That the fact that you have two different words, sing means different from sin, is because you have two different phonemes. One is the N, the other one is N with a tail, right? So we say that in English, N and N plus and N with a tail are two different phonemes, because when you replace one with another one, you have a different word altogether, right? So that's what the concept of a phoneme is, okay? So phoneme is very important, right? Because it can indicate contrast in meaning. But when we talk about allophone, right, other sounds, allophone is a non-significant sound. And you will not have contrast in meaning. No contrast in meaning. Even though you switch one allophone with another allophone, no contrast in meaning. Okay? You will just sound like a foreigner, 외국인. Okay? If you switch one allophone for another allophone, you will just sound like not native speaker. Okay? But you can still be understood. Okay? And two examples of allophone in English are, remember, we have aspirated P and then unaspirated P. Aspirated P, we have the H above it, right? We call the superscripted H. And we put the allophones in square brackets just to indicate that they are allophones and not phonemes, right? And we put phonemes in slanting line, right? Slash like this, and then allophones in square brackets, okay? So when you do the aspirated P in English, the aspiration is the puff of air, right? The air that comes out when you do it. So when you do words like pot, P-O-T, pot, typically this P will be aspirated. Pot, like that. Pot, pot, like that. So the air, which is the aspiration, will come out. But when you have the unaspirated P, it usually occurs after an S, okay? So if you have the word like spot, then if you pronounce it naturally, there's no way that it can be aspirated. Spot, 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 like that, right? No matter how loud you do it, it's still unaspirated because it occurs after the S. And the S, is a fricative sound, right? When you produce a fricative sound, the air comes out already, so there's no puff of air that can come out here. Because the puff of air already comes out, spot, like that, okay? So one is aspirated, the other one is unaspirated. So you have two different allophones. But they are still P's, right? They are still the same P, right? So in other words, you can have, let's see, you can have the phoneme P, which consists of two allophones, aspirated allophone and the unaspirated allophone, like that. So this thing is the phoneme, and this thing is an allophone, and so is this thing, okay, like that. So that's what we talked about last time, okay? So the concept of a phoneme and allophone. So today we'll look at more allophones in English, okay? Again, allophones do not make any meaning difference, and you can predict, you can tell where you will find the unaspirated P, you can tell where you will find the aspirated P. You have the ability to predict, okay? But for phoneme, there's no prediction. A phoneme can occur anywhere. A phoneme can occur anywhere. There's no prediction. And if I may add two more words, the fact that you can never predict where a phoneme will occur because they are in contrastive distribution, okay? If I may add that term. Contrastive distribution. To distribute is to spread around, right? Distribute is to spread around. So a phoneme can be in contrastive distribution. Okay, you can say that. A phoneme can be in contrastive distribution, meaning that you cannot predict because they can occur anywhere, right? So for example, sin versus sing. Contrastive, same position, last sound, okay? And same position, last sound, like that, okay? Or even words like keep and keep, right? Same position inside, one is short and one is long. This is keep to keep, right? This is keep, like the name of a person, keep. So same position, and we call this contrastive distribution, because when you switch one sound, the meaning is contrastive. Okay, so a phoneme can be in a contrastive distribution, and you can never predict because they can occur anywhere, in the front, in the middle, in the back, everywhere. Okay. On the other hand, an allophone is in complementary distribution. Oops. Complementary distribution. I think it's on your handout. It's on the slide too. Complementary distribution. That's an allophone. An allophone can be in complementary distribution. Complementary meaning you can predict where they occur, and there's never the same place that they occur in. Okay? Complementary meaning not in the same place. Okay? So in other words, if you have two positions, okay, in a word, allophone X will occur only in one position, and you will find an allophone Y in another position, always like that. You will not find Y here, never. Okay, so just only in one position. Okay, you can predict because they are in complementary, and when you combine them, it's complete. Okay, it's every position. So an allophone can occur in complementary distribution, whereas the phoneme can be in contrastive distribution. Okay? So in the case of, remember, the aspirated P and the unaspirated P, the aspirated P occurs in the front position, right? As in pot, as in pat, as in whatever, potato, no, not potato, potato too. Here. But the, what is it? The unaspirated P will occur after the S. Okay? So you can see that they are in complementary distribution, meaning the aspirated P will never occur after the S. And the unaspirated P will never occur in the front position, like that, front of the word. So they are complementary. Okay? So that's what we talked about last time and what you should understand. Now today we'll look at more examples of allophones in English, and or more examples of what counts as a phoneme and what counts as an allophone. So I'll just use this handout and then pass this handout around so that we can look at the handout and work on the handout together. So if I were to talk, to give you a real life analogy, comparison, meaning, if you know Superman, right? If you know Superman, when you see Superman, you will not see this guy, Clark Kent, right? Because they are one and the same person, right? So you will see Superman when it's an emergency situation, right? So Clark Kent will turn into Superman like that in an emergency situation. But in other cases, when he goes to work, when he talks to people, you'll see Clark Kent, right? Just like that. So we can say that they are both one and the same person, okay? And Clark Kent and Superman are like allophones, okay? They are non-contrastive, meaning they are in complementary distribution. You find one person in a particular situation, and you find the other guy in another situation, not in the same situation. So they appear in complementary distribution. And so the concept of Superman, this thing is phoneme, right? And in the slanting line, and in actual fact, you'll see either the guy or the Superman, right? So these are allophones of the same phoneme, okay? So aspirated, unaspirated P, they are the same phoneme, but two different allophones, okay? Like that. Now we'll look at the handout that I prepared for you today, and we'll start off with what is a phoneme and what's an allophone first. So if you look at the handout, we'll use the Korean examples first. We'll look at page 3 of the handout, okay? Page 3 of the handout. We'll look at page 3 of the handout. We'll look at R and L in Korean and see if they are allophones or phoneme. Page 3, okay? So I have a list of words here. Again, phonemes and allophones are language specific, meaning what counts as a phoneme in one language might not be the same as what counts as a phoneme in another language, okay? So we're talking about Korean now, we're not talking about English. So we want to know whether R and L in Korean are the same phoneme or not, or are they just allophones of the same phoneme? In English, we know that there are two different phonemes, right? Because when you pronounce in English, lice and rice, they have different meaning, right? So they are in contrastive distribution. But in Korean, are they the same phoneme, or are they different allophones of the same phoneme? That's the question. So we have these words. So these are the IPA transcribed words of your language, right? Rupi, kiri, kiri, saram, right? Irumi, radio, mul, I cannot do that. Pal, ipalsa, ilkop, soul. You can do it better, but just take the examples here, okay? And we'll just decide whether they are the same phoneme or are they different phonemes. So remember, a phoneme, you cannot predict where they occur. And for allophones, you can predict where they occur. You can predict they will never occur in the same situation. So where do they occur? We'll just have to look at where R and L occur, okay? So in the first one, ruby, where does the R occur? The R occurs in front, right? And before the word U, the vowel U, right? So we just say, this is how I do it. So this sharp symbol is for the front, okay? Front of the word. And then I have a bar here, which means this is where the R is, okay? Like that. And then it occurs before U. So that's how I predict where it occurs, okay? The sharp means in front, and the U here is just the where we see it, right? And this is just the R, okay? So the R, where the R occurs, okay? I don't have to write it out. Number 2, the word road, kiri. Where do you see the R? Here. You see the R after an E, right? And before another E. So we do the same thing. E and E, like that, right? So R is here. This is the R, okay? So we'll list out everything. So same thing for saram. R there, saram. The R occurs in between two R's, right? So R and R, like that, right? So that's where it occurs. Number 4, irumi. So it occurs irum. before R, E, and U, right? Ooh, like that, right? And then ratio is in the front and before the vowel A, like that, okay? And mul, now you see the L. It occurs after U and at the last position, right? So we use the sharp sign here to show that it's the last, okay? You do the same thing for everything that we have here. Pal, so it's after A, and as the last thing, ipalsa after A, and then between A and S, ilkob after E and K before K, sol after U, and last thing, just like that, right? So this is how we list out what we call the environment. The environments in which the R and L occur. Okay, so we list out all the environments of the R and L. Remember, if they are allophones, you must be able to tell where they occur, and they will never occur in the same position if they are allophones. So we list out the environments just to know where they will occur, okay? So there are two positions, right? Front of that sound, front of R and L, and after that sound, R and L, okay? Two positions that we have to consider. Let's look at the front first. Let's look at the front. What do you have as the front? In front of the word, right? So this is R. So this is L, okay? So you have two, R and L. So R, in the front position, you have front position, front, and then vowel, and then vowel, vowel, and then front, okay? So in the front position, you have front or a vowel, okay? That's the front position. For the L, let's look at the sound before it first. You have U, A, E, and U. They are all vowels, okay? So we can say vowel, only vowels, okay? So we are done with the sound before it. What about the sound after it, okay? What about the sound after it? For R, you have U, E, A, U, A, right? They are all vowels, right? So we have vowel afterwards for the R. What about the L? What about the L? Sharp meaning end, right? This is at the end. S, K, sharp, right? So end and consonant, okay? So vowel and then at the end or consonant, okay, like that. So can you predict the two different patterns, the two different environments that R and L occur in? For the sound before it, in the case of R, you see the sharp, which is the beginning, right? And then do you see the beginning of the word with an L? Do you see? No, right? L never occur in the front position, you see? But R does, right? R always occur in this position, but L never occurs in that position. And R can occur after a vowel, just like L can. So this is not the factor, okay? Because they share. We're looking at complementary distribution, things that they don't share. So you can say that R occurs in front of the word, whereas L will never occur in front of the word, right? So that's one observation. So R in front of the word, L never in front. Okay? It's complementary distribution, right? You can predict R will be in the front and L will never be in the front. Okay? So that's done for the sound before it. What about the sound after it? For the R, do you have a vowel after it? You can have a vowel after it. For the L, do you have a vowel after it? No. You have an L at the end or before a consonant. So this is complementary distribution. Okay? So R first. R before a vowel and L at the end or before a consonant, like that. So we have two observations. So we can come to a conclusion, right? That R and L in Korean are two different allophones of the same phoneme. You guys don't distinguish meaning difference between R and L, right? Because they are just allophones of the same phoneme. Whereas in English, they are two different phonemes, right? So R and L in Korean, we can say that are different allophones of the same phoneme. They are not different phonemes like in English, okay? So that's how we look at allophones and phoneme, okay? So far so good. Now let's look at the second one from Korean again. Korean is a language isolate meaning it's a language that's not in any family. Like this is the language that doesn't have, is not really related to other languages. Not related to Spanish or Chinese like that, okay? Spoken by this amount of people in North and South Korea, China, and US, and Japan. And based on the word below here, okay? Do S and sh, okay? Belong to separate phonemes of Korean, or are they allophones of a single phoneme, okay? Again, in English, they are two different phonemes for sure, right? Because when you pronounce see, I see him, and she, two different words. But are these two different phonemes in Korean, or are they different allophones of the same phoneme, okay? So we'll have to look again at the environment where they occur. So we'll do the same. We'll list out where they occur. And if they are allophones, we need to be able to predict where they occur. So for this one, she poem, right? So this is the, so I can do it maybe here for this sound and for the S. So for she poem, so it's in front of the word and before E, right? So for that word, in front of the word and before E, okay? So this is where the hook occurs. The second one, sal, right? It means flesh, meat, like that. Takasum sal, maybe, right? So it occurs in front and before A, okay? That's the S sound, right? Sal, takasum sal, right? And then like chicken breast. And then, I don't know how to pronounce that, mission, superstition. That's the shu sound. So it occurs between E and E, like that, right? And then shinmun, newspaper. So shinmun, E, like that, right? Shinmun. Singer, kasu. Kasu, so S sound. Oh, no, shinmun. No, sorry. Shinmun has to be here. So it's in front and before E. And then kasu, so it's after A and before U, like that, okay? Oh, that word is difficult. Table clock. Yes, you do it well. Shige, whatever. Okay, shige. Shige. After and with the tail and before E, like that. Shige. Okay? Shikie. Shikie. Prose meaning not poem, not poetry. San moon. San moon. So it's in the beginning, right? And before search to look for something. Susek. I know komsek hada to search. Chatta, I know that, but susek no. Susek, so we have two S's, right? So one is in front of you, and one is in front, one is before U and A, like that. We have two S's here. One is in front, and the other one is after U and before A, okay, like that. And then mistake, shilsu, right? So we have this one in front and before E. Oh, so sorry, is here. In front and before E. And su is after L and before U, like that, okay? So that's how we do it. And then what else do we have? Castle. Castle. I don't know how to pronounce. Hypothesis. So we have S, which occurs after A and before schwa. Okay? Like that. Castle. And then 50. O-ship, I know. That one is easy. O-ship. So it's after O and before E. O-ship. Right? Yuk ship, chill ship, like that. And then smile, miso, really? Miso, so it's miso soup, E and O, like that, okay? Method, pangshik, I know bangbop. Pangshik, so is before, after N and before E. Kanshik, snack. Kanshik, so it's N and E, okay? Kashi, thorn. So A and E. And then so, that's when it's easy. So koki. So is in front and before O. Okay? So all the environments are listed for all the words that we see. Now we'll see whether they are the same phoneme or they are different allophones of the same phoneme in Korean. We're not talking about English now. So let's look at the environment, the sound before the sound in question, okay? The sound before, let's look at the hook. What do you see here? In front, vowel, in front, consonant, in front, vowel, consonant, consonant, vowel. So pretty much everything, right? Because you see front, you see vowel, and you see consonant. So it's like everything that you can imagine, right? What about S? The sound before S, you have front, vowel, vowel, consonant, vowel, vowel, front. So everything too, right? Again, if they are the same allophones, if they are allophones, they cannot occur in the same. So this should not be the factor, okay? Because they repeat. The environments are the same. You have front, vowel, and consonant. So that's not the factor that will affect where the hook and the S occur. Now maybe the factor is after, okay? So let's look at the sound after S. What do you see in the hook? E. Do you see anything else? Never. What about S? What do you see? R, U, R, U, A, U, schwa, O, O. All vowels, right? But the only difference is, yes, E is a vowel, but you won't see the E after S at all. Whereas you'll see E after the hook, sh, right, in Korean, and no other vowels possible. So can we predict now where you see the hook and where you see the S? Yes, right? So the S, we can say that the S will occur everywhere, okay? Because it has more locations, right? It has more locations in which it occurs. But you see the hook where? You see the hook only before that vowel, before E, right? And everywhere else, doesn't matter where, in front, at the end, wherever, everywhere else you see the S. But you see the hook just before E, right? So we can say that they are the same phoneme, right? S and hook in Korean are the same phoneme. They're just different allophones of the same phoneme. We can say that S, the phoneme, which is the phoneme, right, turns into, I use an arrow, which means turn into. S turns into a hook, which is an, oops, sorry. S turns into a hook, right? The phoneme S turns into a hook when it occurs before the E. So I use the slash line to say that this is when, okay? When it occurs before E, like that. So that's my rule. This is how it reads. The phoneme S turns into a hook when it occurs, the space here means when it occurs before E. And everywhere else, you will have just the S. You can say S turns into just an S when everywhere else. Like that. But they are the same phoneme. Okay. So the phoneme turns into an allophone where? Okay. Phoneme S turns into a hook when it occurs before E. And S remains the same everywhere else. Like that. So in Korean then, how would you pronounce this word? Because Korean seems to have imported a lot of English words into its vocabulary. So words like taxi in English, okay, taxi. How should it be? Maybe it's a no-brainer question for you guys because you guys pronounce that everywhere, every day anyway. But if you use your knowledge here, how would it be pronounced? This X. X is S, right? When you transcribe. Where does it occur? Do you see an E? E. So it should fall into this rule, right? So the S, taxi in English, should be pronounced taxi in Korean. Is this the way you guys pronounce it? Taxi. Taxi 타다, right? 택시를 타다. 택시를 잡다, like that, right? Taxi, right? Do you pronounce it like that? According to the rule here, because it occurs before E, so S in English is taxi, like that, right? So S here should be the hook in Korean. When it's pronounced in Korean, taxi, like that. According to the rule that we see here, if the rule is correct. What about rush hour? I don't know. Rush hour. I know only from the rule. How do you pronounce that? Rush here in English is rush, like that, right? Do you pronounce rush hour when you use it in Korean? 빨리 빨리, rush hour. Do you do it like that? Rasu, maybe rasu hour, maybe, right? Ras. So in Korean, it should be pronounced with an S because there's no environment like that. Okay? You know best. So this is how we figure out how we predict allophones and how we predict phonemes. Okay. So any questions? If no, we could look at English, which is on the front page. We talked about aspiration, right? We talked about aspiration. When we talked about aspiration, we only talked about one condition, right? We talked about one condition that you have the phoneme P, okay, P, which has two allophones, right? Aspirated one and then unaspirated one, correct? When do we find the aspirated P? In the front position, remember? Pot, pack, peak, like that, right? And then you'll find this after an S, right? Just like that. Speak, spot, right? Spar, right? Like that. So we can say that the phoneme P becomes aspirated P when it occurs in front of the word. So that's how the rule says. The phoneme P becomes aspirated P when it occurs when it occurs in front of the word. Okay? And the phoneme P will turn into unaspirated P when it occurs after an S, like that. Same phoneme, the P. But you have some conditions that will turn them different, the PH and then the P, aspirated and non-aspirated. So if you see a word like spark, is this P aspirated or unaspirated? According to the rules here, it has to be unaspirated, right? Spark, spark, spark. But the word park, it is aspirated because according to this rule, in the front position, P is here in the front, just like this, it will be aspirated. So this P is aspirated P, this one is unaspirated P. Right? When I pronounce the word park in Korean, they never understand me. People never understand me. Like I'm a member at Park Gym, P-A-R-K Park Gym in Wangsimni. So when I park my car, I have to enter the building, right, into the parking lot. I tell the guard, "Hi, I'm coming to Park Gym." He doesn't recognize it. I don't know how to pronounce it, but Helsu, something like that. When I say health club, he doesn't understand. It has to be like Helsu, something like that. just one word, Park Gym. How is it difficult to catch my pronunciation? Park Gym, right? But anyway, that's always my pet peeve, my annoying thing, my irritation. Anyway, so that's what we talked about before. Now we'll look at more conditions on the handout. We'll look at more conditions for aspirated and unaspirated P on page 1. So you know one condition already, right? That after S and in front of the word. Now when stress is involved in P, T, and K, all voiceless stops behave the same thing, behave the same way, okay? P, T, and K can be aspirated or unaspirated. The one rule that you already know is that if it's in front, P, T, and K will be aspirated. But if it's after the S, stop, scat, skip, skate, like that, there will be unaspirated. So you know that rule. Now, there's more to aspiration. When stress is involved with PTK, you will see two different patterns. So on this column, you see aspirated P. On this column, you'll see unaspirated P. Now, what I underline here, you see the underline, it means that that syllable is stressed. Okay? So when you pronounce oppose, the second syllable will have the stress. Okay? So oppose, like that. Appall, like that. Appall, like that. Okay? Appall is to make scare, to scare someone, right? Musopke mandulta, right? So appall, to make someone scared, to make someone fear. And then this one is a verb. We talk about stress. Record, record. So stress is on the second syllable. Occur, occur. And then iti, when you see the iti, the stress falls on the syllable before iti. So it's rapidity, right? Rapidity, like that. So you see that the P's, the aspirated P's are here, okay? And what about the unaspirated P? Opus, this is how it's pronounced. O, right, you see the underline here, which means stress. Opus. Opus means work, like masterpiece, like that. Magnum opus, masterpiece. Magnum is big, right? Magnum opus, it means my masterpiece, like your successful job that you do, like that. Opal, opal, stress on the first syllable. Again, opal means like a gemstone, a kind of gemstone, like ruby, like diamond, like that, opal. And then the noun record, right? Record, record. And then this is record, record, right? And then ochre. Ochre is yellow. It means yellow. Yellow, brownish tone, like that. Okay? And then rapid. Rapid. Rapid means fast, right? Pali. Now, can you tell me where you see the PH, meaning where you see the aspirated, and where you see the unaspirated when stress is involved? The pattern is clear, right? You don't even have to list out the environment. You see PH, meaning aspirated P, when it occurs in the syllable that's stressed. Whereas you see unaspirated P in unstressed syllable, right? So you can say PH, the phoneme P turns into aspirated when the stress fall on it, like that. Easy, right? P turns into aspirated P when it occurs in a stress. And then P would turn into unaspirated P when just unstressed. Elsewhere. Elsewhere or everywhere else, same thing. Okay? Unstressed syllable, in other words. So this is the second rule that you see, right? The first rule is after S, it will be unaspirated. And also, even though you don't see the S, in unstressed syllables, you see unaspirated P, right? So it's opus, opal, record, ochre, rapid, like that. But here, rapidity, occur, record, appall, oppose, like that, okay? Now, can you predict, based on the two rules here, can you predict this P, this P, this P, and this P? There are two P's there. Are they aspirated or unaspirated? So you have to know where the stress is, right? So how do you pronounce the first word? Do you say appear or do you say appear? Appear, right? So the stress falls on the second syllable. What about pepper? You have two P's actually. You have, how do you say it? Pepper or pepper? Pepper, right? So stress is on the first syllable, okay? And then space, there's only one syllable, so it has to be stressed anyway. And last one, papaya. How do you pronounce it? Papaya or papaya or papaya, right? Papaya, right? Papaya. So the stress is on the second syllable. Papaya. So now you can tell me where we have the aspirated and non-aspirated. So in appear, in the first word is appear, right? So it's like this, appear, and the stress is like that. So this P is which P? It has stress, right, in that syllable. So this is one syllable here. We count the vowel. This is one vowel, so this is another vowel. So there are two syllables. So the stress happens to be on that syllable. So it is aspirated or not? Aspirated. So appear, like that. So we put the H here, okay? Appear, right? Appear. Number two, there are two P's. So it's pepper, right? Pepper, like that. And the stress happens to be here. So, pepper, right? You see the difference when I pronounce it, right? Pepper, pepper, right? So, the first P is aspirated, so it's with an H on it. And then the next P is unaspirated. So, pepper, right? Pepper. In real pronunciation, you can aspirate both. You will just sound like a 외국인 처럼, okay? But they will understand you because allophones do not make any difference in meaning, right? You will just sound like a foreigner, okay? If you switch one allophone for another, but you'll just be doing fine in communication. Number three, space. Space is after S, right? And stress is on there anyway. So S will take priority. So it's after S, so you know that rule. So it's unaspirated space. Unaspirated for sure. Because it's after the S. Doesn't matter if it's stress or not. If it's in the stress syllable or not, if it's after the S, the air is already out. There's no air for you to aspirate it. Okay? Papaya, you have two P's, right? So it's papaya, like that. The stress is here. So the first P is unaspirated P, and then pa is stress, okay? Papaya, like that. Okay, any questions? So this is how we distinguish an allophone from a phoneme, okay? They never occur in the same position, okay? You will never see this guy, this unaspirated in the stressed position, in other words, okay? They are in complementary distribution. So you have the stressed syllable and unstressed syllable, so it's everywhere, right? Meaning it's complementary. Now, before we finish for today, let's do number two. Unreleased PT and K. Unreleased PT and K. Unreleased meaning, in this case, unreleased, the name should suggest the meaning. Unreleased meaning you don't let the air out. You don't let the air out. You don't release the air out. So I use this kind of corner-like thing. Corner of a square, of a rectangle, in order to indicate that it's unreleased. Meaning that when you pronounce this PT and K, you just don't let your tongue tip from where it is. You don't move your tongue tip. So instead of saying things like perfect, like that, perfect at the end, we are looking at the end, perfect, like that. We just unrelease the K, perfect, like that, perfect, like that. You don't release the air out, okay? Or another example, if we pay attention to the P here, top, the P, okay, we're talking about the P. You can say top, like that. I'm on top, like that. You release the air. But you can also not release the air, top, like that. So that's what we call unreleased, okay? Especially in fast communication, in fast speech, in everyday speech, you don't typically release this thing, okay? You don't have to stress every single word that you say in careful speech, right? So we'll look at these guys where they occur. Perfect, hot pot, and prep talk. And you see 3 different locations here, and then here, and then here, right? When we pronounce the word perfect, you can actually exaggerate it in careful pronunciation, in slow speech. You can say, it's perfect, like that. You can do that. But I mean, in normal conversation, people would say, it's perfect, like that, right? Or hot pot, you can say hot pot, careful pronunciation, or you can just say, oh, I need to have some hot pot today, like that. Hot pot, like that. Hot, stop, and then pot. And then prep talk, meaning preparation talk. Prep talk. You don't have to say prep talk like that, okay? So I need to exaggerate. So we are talking about careful, usual pronunciation, okay, in fast speech when we talk in everyday life. So you see where they occur. You will see that the K with that symbol, the T with that symbol, and the P with that symbol, they occur after a vowel, right? You see a vowel before all these, and also they occur before another consonant, okay? So in this case, we can say that P, T, and K that has to be the phonemes, right? The phonemes P, T, and K will become unreleased. P unreleased, T unreleased, K unreleased. When they occur before another consonant. When they occur before another consonant, like that. Or you can just write a C, C to stand for consonant. So whenever you have a consonant after a PTK, that PTK will be unreleased in everyday conversation, okay? I'm not saying that it's wrong to release it. I'm saying that in everyday natural conversation, people don't release it. Okay? So the last thing that we'll talk about for today is still the PTK. But PTK in English, when it occurs at the very end of a word, and we're not talking about whether there's something following it or not in this case, okay? We're just talking about at the end, one environment at the end. You can have all of the variants, all of the allophones. You sip, which means just to take in, to drink, just bit by bit, just to take a sip of water like that. Sip, you can pronounce it any way you like if it's at the end. Sip, sip, or sip, like that, unreleased. Hot, 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 like that. Cake, cake, or cake without anything, without releasing. So at the end, you can see all the variants. We call the allophones the variants. You can say that, the variants. Variants meaning different forms. You can see all the variants of the P, of the phoneme P, T and K also, okay? You can see all the variants at the end of a word, okay? We're not talking about if there's a consonant following it, right? If there's a consonant following it, you typically see the unreleased that we already talked about. But if you have just one word and that's at the end, then you can pronounce it anywhere you like, any way you like. So we call that free variation. Free variation meaning you can choose. And people sometimes pronounce it carefully with the aspiration. Sometimes they just don't release it because they just are lazy, because it's in rapid conversation, whatever. So it could be anything at the end, at that position. So we call this just free variation, okay? So we can just say the phoneme P, T, and K would turn into anything, whatever, PH, P, and P like that when it's at the end of a word. So take your pick. Choose whatever you like. If you want to emphasize the word, just sip, hot, cake, like that. If you don't want to emphasize, you can unrelease the sounds, okay? So including T, H, P, and then T, and then T unreleased, and K too. K, and then K unreleased. Okay? So the phoneme turns into all the variants at the end. Okay? I think this should be the last example that we can look at today, because there are two more examples, but we don't have time for today. So we'll come back and do the rest as a review for phonemes and allophones on Wednesday. And we'll also go on in phonology. So bring the PowerPoint slides that I sent out yesterday. And also, if you have questions about the homework that will be due on Wednesday, just ask me, okay?